Claire Whitfield thought her elegant church wedding would be the perfect beginning to her fairy tale life, until she heard her maid of honor's cruel whisper echoing through the bridal room. "I can't wait to see this ugly black groom." What Claire didn't know was that her nervous laugh in response to that racist joke would be recorded on a voice message, and that her new husband Darius would hear every devastating word on what should have been the happiest day of their lives. As the beautiful ceremony unfolded and guests gasped at seeing the handsome, dignified man Claire had chosen, a deeper betrayal was brewing beneath the surface of their picture-perfect wedding. When Darius discovers months of text messages revealing how Claire's friends had been mocking their relationship as nothing more than a rebellious phase, he's forced to make an impossible choice. Can a marriage survive when the person who promised to honor you has been too ashamed to defend you? Will Claire find the courage to choose her husband over her toxic social circle before it's too late? Or will her silence destroy the only real love she's ever known? If you're watching this story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know if love can truly conquer cowardice in your part of the world. The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Mark's Church, casting colorful patterns across the white walls. Claire Whitfield stood in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal room, her heart racing as she smoothed the silk fabric of her wedding dress. Today was the day she had dreamed about since she was a little girl. Today, she would marry Darius. "Oh my God, Claire, you look absolutely stunning," Vanessa Price said, stepping back to admire her best friend. Vanessa had been Claire's roommate at college, and they had stayed close ever since. With her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer dress, Vanessa always looked like she belonged in a magazine. Claire smiled nervously. "Thank you. I can't believe this is really happening." Emma Hughes, Claire's quieter friend who taught third grade at the local elementary school, was carefully arranging the train of Claire's dress. "You're going to have the most beautiful wedding," she said softly. "Darius is such a lucky man." The third bridesmaid, Jessica, was touching up her lipstick in the corner. She had been Vanessa's friend first, but Claire had included her to keep the peace. Jessica always seemed to go along with whatever Vanessa said. "Ladies, we need to start lining up in about 10 minutes, announced Mrs. Patterson, the wedding coordinator. She was a small woman with gray hair who had been organizing weddings at St. Mark's for over 20 years. "The groom and his brother are already in position." Claire's stomach fluttered with excitement and nerves. In just a few minutes, she would walk down the aisle to Darius. Sweet, kind, strong Darius, who made her laugh and feel safe, who built beautiful things with his hands and always knew the right thing to say when she had a hard day at work. Vanessa moved closer to Emma, speaking in what she thought was a whisper. But the small room carried sound easily, and Claire heard every word clearly. "I just can't wait to see this ugly black groom everyone's been talking about," Vanessa said with a small laugh. "I really hope Claire hasn't completely lost her mind." Claire felt like someone had dumped ice water over her head. Her hands began to shake as she gripped her bouquet tighter. She caught Vanessa's eyes in the mirror. "Vanessa?" Claire said, trying to keep her voice light even though her heart was pounding. "Don't be so dramatic. That's not nice." Vanessa shrugged, not looking sorry at all. "Oh, come on, Claire. I'm just being honest. We're all thinking it." Emma looked uncomfortable and stared down at her shoes. Jessica giggled softly. "Actually," Vanessa continued, pulling out her phone, "Sarah couldn't make it today, but she's dying to know what he looks like." She held up her phone and started recording a voice message. "Sarah, girl, you are missing quite a show. I can't wait to see Claire's ugly black groom. This should be interesting. Claire heard her own nervous laugh in the background of the recording and immediately hated herself for it. Why didn't she speak up? Why didn't she tell Vanessa to stop? "Vanessa, please," Claire said weakly, but Vanessa was already sending the message. "Don't worry, honey. I'm sure he's nice," she said, patting Claire's shoulder like she was talking to a child. Emma finally spoke up. "I met Darius at the rehearsal dinner, Vanessa. He seemed really kind and intelligent." "I'm sure he is," Vanessa said in a tone that suggested she thought the opposite. Mrs. Patterson returned to the room. "Time to line up, ladies. The ceremony is about to begin." The bridesmaids filed out, leaving Claire alone for a moment. She stared at herself in the mirror, holding her bouquet with trembling hands. The beautiful white dress that had made her feel like a princess now felt heavy and wrong. Vanessa's cruel words echoed in her mind. "Today is about us," she whispered to her reflection, trying to force a smile. But her eyes looked uncertain and scared. Earlier that same morning, Darius Cole had been driving to the church in his carefully pressed black suit. He hummed along to the radio, rehearsing his vows under his breath. After 2 years of dating Claire, he still couldn't believe she had said yes when he proposed. She was beautiful, successful, and kind. And somehow, she loved him back. He checked the time on his dashboard. He was running right on schedule, maybe even a few minutes early. Aaron had texted him twice already, asking if he was nervous. Of course he was nervous. This was the biggest day of his life. As he turned onto Maple Street, just a few blocks from the church, Darius spotted an older black man standing next to a car with its hood up. Steam was coming from the engine, and the man looked frustrated and worried. Darius slowed down. He really didn't have time to stop, but something in his father's voice echoed in his mind. "Son, you always help when someone needs it. That's what good men do." He pulled over and got out of his car. "Having some trouble?" he called out. The older man looked up, relief flooding his face. "Oh, thank goodness. Yes, sir. My car just died on me, and I'm supposed to pick up my granddaughter from her dance class in an hour." "I'm Darius," he said, extending his hand. "Robert Greene," the man replied, shaking it firmly. "I sure do appreciate you stopping." Darius popped the hood and took a look. The radiator hose had come loose, probably an easy fix. "Mr. Greene, do you have any water in your car? Maybe a bottle or something?" "I think my granddaughter left a water bottle in the back seat." They worked together for about 15 minutes, adding water and securing the hose. Darius got his hands a little dirty, but nothing that couldn't be cleaned up. "There you go," Darius said, wiping his hands on a rag from Mr. Green's trunk. "That should get you where you need to go, but you'll want to take it to a mechanic tomorrow." "Son, you are a blessing," Mr. Green said, his eyes bright with gratitude. "Look at you all dressed up nice. You heading somewhere special?" "My wedding, actually," Darius said, unable to keep the smile off his face. "Well, I'll be. Congratulations, young man. Your bride is getting herself a good one." As Darius got back in his car, he felt good about stopping. His father would have been proud. His phone buzzed with another text from Aaron. "Where are you, man? Getting worried." "Pulling up now," Darius texted back. He parked near the church and grabbed the small velvet box containing Claire's ring from his glove compartment. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance of St. Mark's Church, his heart full of love and hope. Back in the bridal room hallway, Mrs. Patterson was organizing the bridesmaids for the processional. Claire tried to focus on the instructions about when to start walking and how slowly to move, but her mind kept replaying Vanessa's words. As they lined up, Claire quietly pulled Vanessa aside. "What you said in there hurt my feelings," Claire said softly. Darius is a good man, and I love him. Please don't say things like that. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Oh, Claire, I was just joking around. You know me. I'm just worried about you, that's all. You had such a perfect life before. Why are you throwing it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm starting a new life with someone who loves me. If you say so, Vanessa said, but her tone suggested she didn't believe it. Emma, who had been walking behind them, stepped closer to Claire. I meant what I said earlier. Darius seems really wonderful. You looked so happy when you were with him at the rehearsal dinner. Claire felt a little better hearing Emma's kind words, but she still didn't understand why she couldn't find the courage to tell Vanessa that her comments were racist and cruel. Claire had always hated confrontation. Even as a child, she would rather go along with something she didn't like than start an argument. The music began to swell from inside the church. Mrs. Patterson opened the doors to the sanctuary, and Claire could see the rows of guests turning to look toward the back. Bridesmaids, remember to walk slowly and smile, Mrs. Patterson instructed. Claire, your mother is waiting for you at the doors. One by one, the bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle. Vanessa went first, her smile bright and perfect. Then Jessica, followed by Emma, who gave Claire an encouraging nod before she started walking. Claire's mother, Marianne Whitfield, appeared at her side. She was an elegant woman in her late 50s, always perfectly dressed and composed. You look beautiful, sweetheart, her mother said, straightening Claire's veil. Are you ready? Claire nodded, though her stomach was full of butterflies. I think so. Just breathe, her mother said. And remember, this day is about you and Darius. Nothing else matters. If only that were true, Claire thought. Inside the sanctuary, Aaron Cole was checking his watch and starting to worry. Where was Darius? The music had started, and the bridesmaids were already walking down the aisle. Just as Aaron was about to step outside to look for his brother, he saw Darius slip quietly through the side door and take his place at the altar. Aaron breathed a sigh of relief. Darius looked calm and handsome in his black suit, though Aaron noticed he was breathing a little heavily, like he had been hurrying. Cutting it close, little brother, Aaron whispered. Had to help someone. Darius whispered back. I'm here now. The music changed, signaling that it was time for the bride's entrance. The congregation stood and turned toward the back of the church. Aaron watched his brother's face light up as the doors opened fully, and then Claire appeared. She was beautiful, there was no doubt about that. The white dress flowed perfectly around her as she walked slowly down the aisle with her mother. But Aaron was more interested in watching the faces of the guests, especially the group of well-dressed white women sitting in the third row on the bride's side. He had met some of Claire's friends at the rehearsal dinner, and he hadn't liked what he'd heard. The questions they asked Darius had been polite on the surface, but Aaron could hear the judgment underneath. Questions about his job, where he grew up, where he went to college, all delivered with fake smiles and raised eyebrows. Now he watched as those same women got their first clear look at Darius standing at the altar. He could almost see their surprise. Whatever they had been expecting, it wasn't this. Darius was tall and handsome, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He carried himself with quiet confidence and looked like he belonged exactly where he was. Aaron felt a surge of pride for his younger brother. Darius had worked hard his whole life, building his carpentry business from nothing. He was honest, kind, and loyal. Any woman would be lucky to have him. Claire reached the front of the church and handed her bouquet to Emma. When she turned to face Darius, her smile seemed genuine for the first time all morning. Aaron watched them look into each other's eyes, and he could see the love there, Maybe this would work out after all. Pastor Williams opened his Bible and welcomed the congregation. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Claire Whitfield and Darius Cole in holy matrimony. As the pastor spoke about love and commitment, Darius found his mind wandering briefly to his father, who had died 3 years ago. He wished his dad could be here to see this day. His father would have loved Claire's laugh and the way she always asked about Darius's projects with genuine interest. Claire stood beside him, and he could feel a slight tremor in her hand. He squeezed gently, trying to offer comfort. When she looked up at him, he saw something in her eyes that he couldn't quite identify. It looked almost like guilt. Marriage is not just the joining of two people, Pastor Williams continued. It is the blending of two families, two histories, two futures into one. It requires patience, understanding, and above all, the willingness to stand together through both joy and hardship. When it came time for vows, Darius went first. He had written and rewritten his words a dozen times, wanting them to be perfect. Claire, he began, his voice steady but emotional. 2 years ago, you walked into my life and changed everything. You make me want to be the best version of myself every single day. I promise to love you, to support your dreams, to make you laugh when you're sad, and to be the safe place you can always come home to. I promise to stand beside you through whatever life brings us, as your partner, your protector, and your best friend. Some of the guests wiped their eyes. Aaron smiled proudly. Even Marianne Whitfield looked moved. Then it was Claire's turn. She had practiced her vows many times, but now, looking into Darius's warm brown eyes, some of her words felt different. Darius, she began, her voice slightly shaky. You are the kindest, strongest, most generous man I have ever known. You see the best in everyone, including me. I promise to love you with all my heart, to support your dreams the way you support mine, and to stand beside you in all things, no matter what. When she said, stand beside you in all things, her voice caught slightly. Darius noticed, but he attributed it to wedding day nerves. By the power vested in me by the state of Ohio, I now pronounce you husband and wife, Pastor Williams announced. Darius, you may kiss your bride. Darius cupped Claire's face gently in his hands and kissed her softly. The congregation erupted in applause and cheers. As they walked back down the aisle together as husband and wife, confetti and rice flew through the air. But as they passed the third row, Claire caught sight of Vanessa's face. Her smile looked forced, and there was something cold in her eyes that made Claire's stomach clench with worry. The reception hall was decorated with white roses and twinkling lights. Claire moved through the room, checking on details and greeting guests. This was what she did best, making sure everything was perfect, keeping everyone happy. Darius worked the room too, shaking hands with guests and answering their questions with grace and humor. Some people seemed genuinely interested in getting to know him. Others were harder to read. So, Darius, carpentry, said one of Claire's college friends, Robert, holding a glass of champagne. That must be physical work. I love what I do, Darius replied easily. There's something satisfying about building things that will last, creating something beautiful and functional with your hands. How interesting, Robert's wife chimed in. Do you feel comfortable in a place like this? I mean, it's quite elegant. Darius kept his smile steady. Claire planned a beautiful wedding. She has excellent taste. Aaron, standing nearby, stepped closer to his brother. He didn't like the tone of these conversations. When it came time for the maid of honor speech, Vanessa stood up with her champagne glass raised. She looked beautiful and confident in her pale pink dress. "I've known Claire since we were 18 years old," she began, her voice carrying easily through the room. "We were roommates our freshman year, and I knew right away that she was special. Claire has always been surprising. She's always had such interesting, unexpected tastes." Some people laughed, though Aaron noticed that Emma looked uncomfortable. "Claire has always been the type to follow her heart, no matter where it leads her, even when it leads her places that none of us would have expected." More laughter, though it sounded forced. "I know that Darius will take good care of our Claire," Vanessa continued, looking directly at him. "After all, she's always been drawn to unique situations. Here's to Claire and Darius. May you always surprise us." The toast felt wrong somehow, though most of the guests seemed to take it at face value. Claire forced a smile and raised her glass, but her heart was racing. Later in the evening, Emma approached Darius while Claire was busy talking to some family friends. "Darius, I just wanted to tell you how beautiful your vows were," Emma said sincerely. "And I want you to know that not everyone agrees with, well, with some of the things that have been said today." "Thank you, Emma. That means a lot. Claire is lucky to have you. I can see how much you love her." For the first time all day, Darius felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. "I do love her, very much. She loves you too. Don't forget that, okay?" Emma's words stayed with him as the evening wore on. By the time the dancing started, Darius was feeling tired and ready for some air. He excused himself and headed toward the restroom to splash some water on his face and straighten his tie. As he walked down the hallway toward the men's room, he could hear voices coming from the ladies' room next door. He recognized the voices as Vanessa and Jessica, and they were laughing about something. "Hold on," he heard Vanessa say. "Let me play this for you." Then he heard his own phone vibrating with a message. But more importantly, he heard Vanessa's voice, loud and clear, playing from her phone. "Sarah, girl, you are missing quite a show. I can't wait to see Claire's ugly black groom. This should be interesting." Darius froze. In the background of the recording, he could hear another voice, a nervous laugh that he recognized immediately. Claire's laugh. His chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing his heart. He stood there in the hallway for a long moment, processing what he had just heard. Then he quietly pushed open the side door and stepped outside into the parking lot. The cool night air hit his face, but it didn't help the burning feeling in his stomach. He leaned against a car, trying to understand what he had just learned. The voice message had been recorded that morning. Claire had been in the room when Vanessa made that cruel joke about him being ugly. And she had laughed. Not defended him. Laughed. After a few minutes, he heard footsteps on the pavement behind him. "Darius?" Claire's voice sounded worried. "What are you doing out here? I was looking for you." He turned around slowly. In the dim light from the parking lot lamps, she looked beautiful in her wedding dress. But he couldn't stop hearing that nervous laugh in his mind. "Did you know?" he asked quietly. "Know what?" "About the jokes. About Vanessa calling me ugly this morning." Claire's face went pale. "Darius, did you know, Claire?" She looked down at her hands, still holding her bouquet. "She said some things that weren't nice. I asked her to stop." "But you didn't really stop her, did you? I heard the voice message, Claire. I heard you laugh." Tears filled Claire's eyes. "I didn't mean to laugh. I was nervous, and I didn't know what to say." "You didn't know what to say when your best friend called your fiancé ugly because he's black?" "I didn't want to cause a scene right before our wedding," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. A scene, Darius repeated. That's what defending me would have been? A scene? That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Darius ran his hand over his face. Claire, I can handle prejudice from strangers. I've been dealing with it my whole life, but I can't handle it from the people closest to you. And I especially can't handle you staying silent when it happens. I'm sorry, Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't change what happened. They stood there in the parking lot, the happy sounds of their wedding reception drifting out from the building behind them. Darius looked at his wife, and felt something crack in his chest. I need some time to think about this, he said finally. What does that mean? It means I don't know if I can trust that you'll stand up for me when I need you to. And I don't know how to be married to someone I can't trust to have my back. Claire reached for his hand, but he stepped back gently. Let's go back inside, he said. We have guests to thank. They walked back into the reception together, both of them smiling and playing their parts. But something had shifted between them, and they both knew it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and polite conversations. Later that night, in their hotel room, Claire sat on the edge of the bed in her slip, having finally gotten out of the heavy wedding dress. Darius stood by the window in his shirt sleeves, looking out at the city lights. The silence between them felt enormous. Can we talk about this? Claire finally asked. I think we have to. She took a shaky breath. I've never been good at confrontation. Even when I was little, I would do anything to avoid arguments or making people upset. This wasn't about confrontation, Claire. This was about respect. For me, for us, for our marriage. I know, you're right. She wiped her eyes. When Vanessa said those things, I felt sick. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that you're the most handsome, wonderful man I've ever known. But I just froze. Darius turned away from the window. Do you know what it's like to walk into a room and wonder if people are going to judge you before you even open your mouth? To always be wondering if you're really welcome, or if people are just being polite. No, Claire said quietly. I don't know what that's like. I've been dealing with it my whole life. When I was in high school, I was the only black kid in my woodshop class. The teacher always acted surprised when I turned in good work. Like he expected me to fail. Claire listened, her heart breaking as she imagined a teenage Darius facing that kind of treatment. When I started my business, some clients would call and then seem surprised when I showed up to give them an estimate. Like they were expecting someone else. That's awful. I dated a woman a few years ago who never introduced me to her family. We were together for 8 months, and I never met her parents or her sister. When I asked her about it, she said they wouldn't understand. Oh, Darius. So when I'm with you, Claire, I need to know that you see me as an equal. Not as someone you're doing a favor for, not as an experiment, but as a man who deserves the same respect and defense that you would give anyone else you love. You are, Claire said, getting up from the bed and moving closer to him. You're the best man I know. You're kind and strong and talented and funny. I love everything about you. But you won't say that when it matters. When someone disrespects me in front of you, you go quiet. That tells me everything I need to know about where I really stand in your life. Claire felt like she couldn't breathe. That's not true. You're my husband. I love you. Love isn't just a feeling, Claire. It's an action. It's a choice you make every day. They sat on the bed together, not touching, but close enough that Claire could see the pain in his eyes. What do you need from me? she asked. I need to know that you'll stand up for me, not just in private, but in public. I need to know that our marriage is more important to you than keeping peace with people who don't respect us. It is. I want to believe that, but today, you chose keeping Vanessa comfortable over protecting my dignity. Claire couldn't argue with that because she knew it was true. Can you forgive me? She asked. I don't know yet, he said honestly. I hope so, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take you showing me that you can be different. They eventually lay down together in the dark, but neither of them slept well. Claire stared at the ceiling, replaying the day and hating herself for her weakness. Darius lay beside her, their hands barely touching, wondering if he had made a mistake in thinking that love would be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. Outside their hotel window, the city hummed with life, indifferent to the pain of two people who had promised to love each other forever, but were already learning how hard that promise would be to keep. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains, but neither Claire nor Darius felt much like celebrating. They moved around each other carefully, like strangers sharing a small space. Claire packed their overnight bags while Darius showered, and they both pretended that everything was normal. My mother wants us to come to brunch, Claire said as she folded her wedding dress back into its protective bag. She made reservations at that place on Elm Street. Okay, Darius replied, adjusting his tie in the bathroom mirror. He had chosen a simple blue shirt and dark pants, wanting to look nice for Claire's family, but not overdressed. Emma will be there too. She asked if she could join us. That's fine. Emma seems kind. They drove to the restaurant in Claire's car, the radio playing softly between them. Claire kept glancing at Darius, trying to read his expression. He was polite but distant, like he was thinking about something far away. The Elm Street Bistro was the kind of place Marianne Whitfield loved. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, and servers who spoke quietly. She had reserved a private dining room in the back, away from the Sunday morning crowd. There are my newlyweds, Marianne said as they arrived, standing to kiss them both on the cheek. She was wearing a pale yellow dress and pearls, every hair in place despite the early hour. Emma was already seated at the table, looking fresh and pretty in a simple sundress. She smiled warmly when she saw them. How are you both feeling? Emma asked. I bet you're exhausted. A little tired, Claire admitted, taking her seat next to Darius. The wedding was absolutely beautiful, Marianne said, spreading her napkin across her lap. The flowers were perfect, and the music was lovely. Though I have to say, there were a few surprising moments. Darius felt Claire tense beside him. What kind of surprising moments? He asked politely. Oh, nothing serious, Marianne said quickly. Just some of the speeches were a bit unconventional. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She had clearly heard Vanessa's toast, too. Vanessa has always been dramatic, Claire said, trying to keep her voice light. You know how she is. Yes, well, Marianne continued. I just think it's important for couples to be surrounded by supportive people. People who understand what marriage really means. The server came to take their orders, giving them a brief break from the tension. Darius ordered pancakes and coffee, trying to focus on the normal everyday task of choosing food from a menu. So, Darius, Marianne said once the server had left, tell me about your work. Claire mentioned you have your own business? Yes, ma'am. I specialize in home renovations and custom carpentry. I've been building the business for about 5 years now. How interesting. And you're busy? Very busy, thankfully. I have projects booked through the end of the year. Emma leaned forward, genuinely interested. What kind of projects do you work on? Darius's face relaxed a little as he talked about something he loved. All kinds of things. Last month I built a custom bookshelf wall for a family with twins. Before that, I renovated a kitchen for an elderly couple who wanted to age in place safely. I like projects where I can help people make their homes better. That's wonderful, Emma said. It must feel good to create things that last. It does. My father was a carpenter too, and he always told me that good work speaks for itself. Marianne nodded politely, but Darius could tell she was still evaluating him, looking for something to criticize or worry about. When their food arrived, the conversation turned to safer topics: the weather, Emma's students, Claire's upcoming work projects. But underneath the pleasant chatter, Darius could feel the weight of judgment and expectation. As they were finishing their meal, Marianne pulled Claire aside near the ladies' room. "Sweetheart, I want you to be careful," she said quietly. "Careful of what?" "Don't let marriage change you too much. You've worked so hard to build your life, your career, your friendships. Make sure you don't lose yourself trying to fit into someone else's world." "Mom, I'm not losing myself. I'm starting a new life with my husband. I just don't want you to alienate the people who've always been there for you. People like Vanessa and your college friends. They're your support system." Claire felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. "Darius is my support system now, too." "Of course he is, dear. I'm just saying that marriage is about balance, about making sure everyone feels comfortable and included." But as they drove home afterward, Claire couldn't stop thinking about her mother's words. Was she supposed to make everyone comfortable, even when they were cruel to her husband? How was that fair to Darius? That afternoon, Darius went to visit Aaron, while Claire stayed home to go through wedding gifts and catch up on emails. Aaron lived in a duplex about 20 minutes away, in a neighborhood where kids played basketball in the street and neighbors knew each other's names. "How's married life treating you, little brother?" Aaron asked as they worked together to install a new shelf in his living room. "It's complicated," Darius replied, holding the bracket steady while Aaron marked the wall. "Complicated how? You've been married for exactly 24 hours?" Darius told Aaron about the voice message, about Claire's nervous laugh, about their conversation in the hotel room. Aaron listened without interrupting, but his expression grew darker with each detail. "Man," Aaron said finally, setting down his drill. "That's messed up. She says she's sorry. She says she froze up." "Being sorry doesn't undo the damage, Darius. And freezing up is just another way of saying she chose her comfort over your dignity. It's not that simple. Isn't it?" Aaron turned to face his brother. "Look, I get that she comes from a different world. I get that standing up to her friends might be hard for her. But you're her husband now. That has to mean something." "I love her, Aaron." "I know you do. But love isn't enough if she's not willing to fight for you. And from what you're telling me, she's not." They worked in silence for a while, the sound of the drill filling the space between them. Aaron had always been protective of Darius, ever since they were kids. He remembered the times Darius had come home from school upset about something a classmate had said, and how their father would sit him down and talk about dignity and self-respect. "Dad used to say that you can tell everything you need to know about people by watching how they act when things get uncomfortable," Aaron said. "When someone's being cruel or unfair, do they speak up or do they look away?" Claire looked away. "Yeah, she did, and that tells you something important about who she is. People can change. They can. But they have to want to, and they have to prove it through actions, not just words." As evening approached, Darius drove back to Claire's condo. Their condo now, he reminded himself. But walking up the stairs to the front door, he felt like he was visiting someone else's life. Meanwhile, Claire was sitting on her couch, scrolling through her phone while sorting through wedding cards. Most of the messages were sweet and simple, but when she got to her social media notifications, her heart sank. Vanessa had posted a photo from the wedding, a beautiful shot of Claire and Darius dancing. But the caption made Claire's stomach turn. When your bestie always did love a surprise. Unexpected choice? Wedding bells. The comments underneath were even worse. Friends from college were posting laughing emojis and inside jokes that Claire knew were about Darius's race. One person wrote, "Claire always was adventurous." Another said, "I hope she knows what she's gotten herself into." Claire stared at her phone, feeling sick. She typed and deleted several responses, trying to find words that would defend Darius without starting a public argument. But every time she tried to post something, she imagined the responses she would get, the private messages, the awkward conversations at future gatherings. Finally, she set her phone aside without posting anything. Emma had sent her a private message. "Hey, I saw Vanessa's post. Are you okay?" Some of those comments seem really inappropriate. Claire typed back, "I'm fine. It's just Vanessa being Vanessa. Things will settle down." But even as she sent the message, she knew she was lying. Things weren't settling down. They were getting worse. When Darius came home that evening, he found Claire in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta sauce with more force than necessary. "How was Aaron?" she asked, without looking up. "Good. We installed some shelves." Darius set his keys on the counter and watched his wife's face. "How was your afternoon?" "Fine. I went through some of the wedding gifts, answered a few emails." "Anything interesting?" Claire hesitated, still stirring the sauce. "Vanessa posted some pictures from the wedding." "That's nice." "Yeah." Claire turned off the heat and faced him. "Darius, do you think I'm a coward?" The question surprised him. "Why would you ask that?" "I keep thinking about what you said last night, about standing up for you, and I wonder if I'm just weak." Darius sat down at the kitchen table. "I don't think you're weak, Claire. I think you're scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing people, of being disliked, of having to choose sides." Claire joined him at the table, leaving the pasta forgotten on the stove. "When I was growing up, my parents fought a lot. Loud, angry fights that would go on for hours. I learned that if I stayed quiet and didn't take sides, eventually things would calm down." "But this isn't about your parents fighting. This is about people disrespecting your husband." "I know. I don't know how to be different." "You start by deciding that my feelings matter as much as Vanessa's feelings. That our marriage matters more than her approval." Claire reached across the table and took his hand. "It does matter more." "I know that." "Then show me." They ate dinner together, talking more easily than they had all day. Claire told him about the funny message one of his co-workers had written in their wedding card. Darius talked about a project he was excited to start next week. For a little while, they felt like themselves again. But that night, as they got ready for bed, Claire's phone buzzed with notifications from the social media post. More comments, more jokes, more reminders that her two worlds were not blending as smoothly as she had hoped. The next few days passed quietly. Claire went to work, planning an anniversary party for a couple who had been married for 40 years. Darius spent his days at a job site, building custom cabinets for a kitchen renovation. They came home to each other each evening, sharing dinner and talking about their days. But there was a careful quality to their interactions, like they were both trying not to say the wrong thing. On Thursday evening, Claire was walking through downtown after a client meeting when she ran into someone she hadn't expected to see. Claire! What a surprise! She turned to see Elliot Ward, her ex-boyfriend, standing outside a coffee shop with his briefcase in hand. He looked exactly the same as he had when they broke up 2 years ago. Tall, blonde, wearing an expensive suit that fit perfectly. Elliot, hi, she said, feeling suddenly self-conscious. I heard congratulations are in order. You got married this weekend, right? Yes, I did. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. He seemed to genuinely mean it, which somehow made the encounter more uncomfortable. Your husband is a lucky man. Thank you. They stood there for a moment, the awkwardness of their history hanging between them. Elliot had been safe, predictable. Their relationship had been comfortable in the way that a warm bath is comfortable. Nice, but not particularly exciting or challenging. Claire, can I ask you something? Elliot said finally. Sure. Are you happy? Really happy? The question caught her off guard. Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Some of our mutual friends have been talking. They seem to think you might be having second thoughts. Claire felt her face flush. What friends? Just people from college. They're worried about you, that's all. They think maybe you made this choice for the wrong reasons. What reasons would those be? Elliot looked uncomfortable. I don't know, Claire. Something about proving a point or rebelling against expectations. They just want to make sure you're okay. I'm fine, Claire said firmly. I married Darius because I love him. I believe you. I just want you to know that if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands your world, I'm here. Claire walked away from that conversation feeling shaken. Was that really what people thought? That she had married Darius to prove something? To rebel? By the time she got home, she had worked herself into a state of anxiety that she couldn't hide from Darius. What's wrong? He asked as soon as he saw her face. She told him about running into Elliot, about the things he had said. Darius listened quietly, his expression growing more closed off with each detail. So, your ex-boyfriend thinks you married me to make a statement, he said finally. That's not what I think. But it's what other people think. It's what your friends think. I don't care what they think. Don't you? Darius stood up from the couch where they had been sitting. Because it seems like you care very much what they think. It seems like their opinion matters more to you than mine does. That's not true. Then why haven't you corrected them? Why haven't you told them that you love me for who I am, not as some kind of social experiment? Claire felt tears starting to form. I don't know how to fight with them, Darius. I don't know how to be the kind of person who starts arguments and burns bridges. You don't have to start arguments. You just have to stop pretending that their cruelty is okay. It's not okay. I know it's not okay. But you won't say that to them. Claire sat there on the couch, looking up at her husband, and realized that he was right. She wouldn't say it to them. She was too scared of the consequences, too worried about being cast out of the group she had been part of for over a decade. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are, Darius said sadly. But sorry isn't enough anymore. That night, they went to bed without resolving anything. Claire lay awake, staring at the ceiling and listening to Darius breathe beside her. She thought about what Emma had said at the wedding, about how lucky she was to have found someone who loved her so completely. She thought about Elliot's assumption that her marriage was some kind of rebellion. She thought about Vanessa's cruel jokes and her mother's warnings about not alienating her support system. Somewhere in the middle of all those thoughts, she realized that she was going to have to make a choice. She could keep trying to balance everyone's feelings, keep trying to keep the peace with people who didn't respect her husband. Or she could accept that some relationships might have to change or end for her marriage to survive. The thought scared her more than anything else had in years. The next evening, Darius came home from work to find Claire working on her laptop at the dining room table. She was on a video call with a client, discussing flower arrangements for an upcoming event. "I think the white roses with eucalyptus would be perfect," she was saying, smiling at her computer screen. "Simple, but elegant." Darius waved hello and went to the kitchen to start dinner. While he was waiting for water to boil for pasta, he remembered that Claire had asked him to print out some invoices from her laptop. She was still on her call, but she had gestured toward the computer, indicating that it was okay for him to use it. He opened a new browser tab and logged into her email account to find the invoices. But when he clicked on the browser history, he saw that she had been looking at an old group chat from her college friends. Curiosity got the better of him, and he clicked on the link. What he found there made his blood run cold. The chat went back several months, to when Claire had first mentioned that she was dating someone seriously. Her friends had immediately started asking questions. What did he do for work? Where did he go to school? What did his family do? When Claire mentioned that Darius was black, the tone of the conversation changed completely. "Interesting choice, Claire," Vanessa had written. "Are you sure about this?" another friend had asked. "I mean, have you thought about what your kids would look like?" "Maybe it's just a phase," someone else had suggested. "You know, experimenting before you settle down for real." And Claire's responses had been weak, defensive, but never corrective. She had used laughing emojis and changed the subject. She had written things like, "You guys are crazy," instead of, "You guys are being racist." When someone had joked that she was going through her rebellious phase, Claire had responded with, "LOL, maybe." Darius sat there at the dining room table, reading months of conversations where his girlfriend, his fiancée, had allowed her friends to treat their relationship like a joke, where she had laughed along with comments about their future children, where she had never once stood up for him or their love. By the time Claire finished her call and turned around, Darius was sitting very still, the laptop closed in front of him. "Did you find the invoices?" she asked. "No," he said quietly, "but I found something else." Claire looked at his face and immediately knew something was wrong. "What did you find?" "The group chat, the one from when you first told them about me." The color drained from Claire's face. "Darius." "How long, Claire? How long have they been treating me like a joke? And how long have you been letting them?" "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like. Months of them asking if you're sure about me, if this is just a phase, if you're experimenting. And you just laughed along." Claire felt like she was going to be sick. "I was trying to keep the peace. I thought if I ignored them, they would eventually accept us." "Accept us?" "Claire, they think I'm your midlife crisis. They think our relationship is some kind of social experiment, and you never once corrected them." "I didn't know how." Darius stood up from the table. "You didn't know how to tell your friends that you love me? You didn't know how to say that I'm not an experiment or a phase or a rebellion?" "I was scared." "Of what? Of them not liking you anymore? Of having to find new friends?" "Yes!" Claire shouted, surprising them both with the volume of her voice. "Yes, I was scared of that. I've been friends with these people for 10 years. They're my whole social world. And I'm your husband. Or at least, I thought I was." Darius walked to their bedroom and pulled an overnight bag from the closet. Claire followed him, tears streaming down her face. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to stay with Aaron for a while. Darius, please. We can work through this. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been ashamed of me from the beginning. It looks like you love me in private, but you're embarrassed by me in public. That's not true. Then why didn't you defend me? Not once, Claire. Not in those messages, not at our wedding, not when your ex-boyfriend implied that I'm some kind of mistake you made. Claire sat down on the bed, sobbing. I don't know. I don't know why I'm like this. Darius stopped packing and looked at his wife. Even crying, even broken, she was beautiful. He loved her so much it felt like a physical ache in his chest. But love wasn't enough to fix this. I need you to figure out who you want to be, he said gently. Because the woman who laughed along with those messages isn't someone I can be married to. She's not someone I can trust with my heart or my dignity. Where will you go? Aaron's couch. I'll be fine. For how long? I don't know. Darius finished packing his bag and walked toward the front door. Claire followed him, desperate and heartbroken. I love you, she said as he opened the door. I love you too, he replied. But that's not enough right now. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Claire alone in the condo that was supposed to be their home. She sank down onto the couch and cried harder than she had since she was a child, finally understanding that love without courage, without the willingness to fight for each other, might not be strong enough to survive in the real world. Outside, Darius sat in his car for a long moment before starting the engine. Through the window, he could see the light on in their living room. Could imagine Claire sitting there alone and crying. Part of him wanted to go back upstairs and hold her, to tell her they would figure it out together. But a bigger part of him knew that some things couldn't be figured out together. Some things Claire would have to figure out on her own. The couch at Aaron's apartment was comfortable enough for a night or two, but by the fourth morning, Darius's back was starting to ache. He lay there in the gray early light, listening to his brother get ready for work in the next room, and tried not to think about Claire waking up alone in their bed. You sure you don't want to come to work with me today? Aaron called from the kitchen. Might be good to stay busy. I've got that cabinet project to finish, Darius replied, sitting up and folding the blanket Aaron had given him. Work will be good. Aaron appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. Any word from Claire? She texted yesterday, asked if I was okay. What did you tell her? That I needed more time. Aaron handed him one of the mugs and sat down in his armchair. Can I ask you something, little brother? Shoot. What would it take for you to go back? Darius thought about that question while he sipped his coffee. I'd need to see that she's willing to put our marriage first. Not just say it, but actually do it. That means cutting ties with those friends? Some of them, yeah. At least the ones who can't treat me with basic respect. And you think she'll do that? I don't know, Darius said honestly. She's scared of being alone. Always has been, from what she's told me. When someone's that afraid of losing people, they'll put up with almost anything to keep them around. Even if it means losing their husband? I guess we'll find out. After Aaron left for work, Darius drove to his job site, a beautiful old house where he was building a custom entertainment center for a retired teacher named Mrs. Chen. She always had fresh coffee waiting and liked to talk while he worked. You seem troubled today, she observed, watching him measure a piece of oak trim. Just working through some things. Marriage things? Darius looked up, surprised. Mrs. Chen smiled kindly at him. I've been married for 43 years, she said. I know that look. How do you make it work? For that long, I mean. Mrs. Chen settled into her favorite chair with her coffee. The first year is the hardest. That's when you find out if you're both willing to grow up. Grow up? Stop being children who just want to be comfortable all the time. Marriage asks you to be brave, to choose your spouse even when it's inconvenient or scary. Some people aren't ready for that. Darius ran his thumb along the smooth wood grain. What if one person is ready and the other isn't? Then the one who isn't ready has to decide what they want more, their comfort or their marriage. Meanwhile, Claire was having the worst week of her life. She went to work each day and tried to focus on her projects, but everything reminded her of Darius, the bride who wanted to add woodwork details to her reception venue, the anniversary couple who kept holding hands while they planned their party, the simple gold wedding band on her own finger that felt too heavy and too light at the same time. Emma had stopped by Wednesday evening with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. "You look terrible," Emma said gently, unpacking containers of lo mein and sweet and sour chicken on Claire's dining table. "Thanks," Claire said with a weak smile. "That's exactly what every girl wants to hear." "I'm serious, Claire. When's the last time you slept or ate something that wasn't coffee?" Claire couldn't remember. The past few days had blurred together in a haze of regret and self-recrimination. "Tell me what happened," Emma said. So Claire did. She told Emma about the voice message, about the old group chats, about Darius finding everything and leaving. Emma listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or wincing at particularly painful details. "Oh, honey," Emma said when Claire finished. "I'm so sorry. I messed up everything. I was such a coward." "You were scared. There's a difference." "Is there? Because right now it feels like the same thing." Emma was quiet for a moment, twirling lo mein around her fork. "Can I tell you something? About the wedding day?" "Sure." When Vanessa made that comment about Darius being ugly, I wanted to say something. But I didn't want to cause drama for you, so I stayed quiet too. Claire looked up. "Emma." And then during her speech, when she was making all those backhanded comments, I sat there feeling sick, but not speaking up. "So I get it, Claire. I understand why you didn't say anything." "But you weren't married to him. It wasn't your job to defend him." "No, it wasn't. But it was still the right thing to do. And I didn't do it either." Emma reached across the table and squeezed Claire's hand. "The difference is, I can see now that staying quiet was wrong. I can see that Vanessa's behavior was cruel and racist. Can you see that?" Claire nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I see it now, but seeing it now doesn't help Darius trust me." "So, what are you going to do about it?" That question kept Claire awake most of the night. What was she going to do about it? The next afternoon, Claire did something she had never done before. She called Vanessa and asked to meet for coffee. They met at a small cafe downtown, the kind of neutral territory where difficult conversations happened. Vanessa arrived looking perfectly put together, as always, in designer jeans and a silk blouse that probably cost more than Claire made in a week. "This is a nice surprise," Vanessa said, settling into her chair with a latte. "I was wondering when we'd get to catch up. How's married life treating you?" "That's what I wanted to talk to you about," Claire said. "Oh." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Don't tell me you're already having second thoughts." "I'm having thoughts about a lot of things, including our friendship." Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" Claire took a deep breath, trying to summon courage she had never had to use before. "The things you said about Darius at my wedding were cruel and racist. The comments in our group chat about him being a phase or an experiment were offensive and hurtful. and I'm done pretending that they weren't. Claire, honey, I was just joking around. You know I didn't mean anything by it. Calling my husband ugly because he's black isn't a joke, Vanessa. Asking if our children will be mixed up looking isn't a joke. Suggesting that I'm going through a rebellious phase isn't a joke. Vanessa's face flushed. I never said anything about your children. Yes, you did. Last spring, when I first told you we were getting serious, you asked what our kids would look like and whether I'd thought about dealing with that. I was just asking practical questions. No, you were being racist, and instead of calling you out on it, I laughed along because I was too scared to lose your approval. Vanessa set down her coffee cup harder than necessary. So, this is what marriage to him has done to you? You're going to throw away 10 years of friendship because your new husband has made you paranoid and oversensitive? Darius didn't make me anything. He just helped me see what was already there. Which is what, exactly? Claire looked across the table at someone she had considered her best friend for a decade, and realized she was seeing her clearly for the first time. Someone who thinks she can say anything she wants as long as she calls it a joke afterward. Someone who thinks being racist is okay as long as it's subtle. Someone who cares more about being entertaining than being kind. Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. You know what, Claire? Maybe your other friends are right. Maybe you did marry him to prove some kind of point. Maybe this whole thing is just you acting out because you're bored with your real life. My real life? Claire felt something sharp and clean cut through her chest. Vanessa, this is my real life. Darius is my real life. And if you can't respect that, then you can't be part of it. Fine, Vanessa said, standing up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. But don't come crying to me when this whole thing falls apart and you realize you threw away everything good in your life for someone who was never going to fit into your world anyway. She stormed out, leaving Claire sitting alone at the small table with 2 half-empty coffee cups. Claire's hands were shaking, but for the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. Emma walked into the cafe just as Vanessa was leaving. She took one look at Claire's face and Vanessa's angry exit and sat down without saying a word. How did that go? Emma asked gently. Terrible, Claire said. And necessary. When Claire got home that evening, she sat down at her laptop and did something else she had never done before. She deleted Vanessa's contact information from her phone. She removed her from all their group chats. She unfriended her on social media. Each click felt like cutting a rope that had been holding her back. The next day was Saturday, and Claire drove to her mother's house for a visit she had been putting off all week. Marianne lived in a beautiful colonial in the nicest part of town, surrounded by gardens she maintained with the help of a professional landscaper. Claire, sweetheart, Marianne said, opening the door with a concerned expression. You look tired? Are you eating enough? I'm fine, Mom. Can we sit down? I need to talk to you about something. They settled in the living room where Claire had spent so many childhood afternoons doing homework while her mother entertained friends. The room was perfect, as always. Fresh flowers, gleaming, surfaces, everything in its proper place. What's on your mind? Marianne asked. Claire told her mother everything. About the cruel comments, about her own silence, about Darius leaving. Marianne listened without interrupting, her face growing more troubled with each detail. Oh, Claire, she said when the story was finished. I had no idea it was that bad. It was worse than bad, Mom, and I let it happen. Marianne was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at her perfect garden. I owe you an apology, she said finally. For what? For setting an example that taught you to value politeness over truth. For caring more about what people thought than about what was right. Claire looked at her mother in surprise. Mom? When I was young, women were taught that keeping the peace was our most important job. That making people comfortable mattered more than standing up for ourselves or the people we loved. Marianne turned to face her daughter. I passed that on to you, and I'm sorry. You were just trying to teach me to be a lady. I was trying to teach you to be safe, to be liked, to never rock the boat. But Claire, some boats need to be rocked. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally, Marianne spoke again. What are you going to do? I don't know if there's anything I can do. Darius says he needs to see that I'm willing to put our marriage first. But I don't know if cutting ties with Vanessa is enough. What else do you think he needs? Claire considered that question. Proof that I won't let it happen again. Proof that I can be brave when someone disrespects him. And can you? Be brave, I mean? Claire thought about the conversation with Vanessa, about how scared she had been to speak up, but how right it had felt afterward. I think I'm learning how. Marianne reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. Then that's something. That evening, Claire sat down at her dining table with a pad of stationery and a pen. She had thought about calling Darius or sending a text, but this felt like something that needed to be written by hand, something permanent and real. Dear Darius, she began, then stopped. How do you apologize for betraying someone's trust? How do you explain cowardice to someone who has been brave his whole life? She started over several times before finding the right words. You were right to be angry with me. You were right to leave. I spent months letting my friends treat our relationship like a joke, and I never once stood up for you or for us. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really, I was being a coward. I was more afraid of losing people who didn't respect you than I was of losing you, and that was wrong. That was the opposite of what a wife should do. I want you to know what I've done since you left. I met with Vanessa and told her that her comments about you were racist and cruel. When she defended herself and suggested that our marriage was just me acting out, I ended our friendship. I deleted her number, removed her from our group chats, and blocked her on social media. I also talked to my mother about the example she set for me, about caring more about appearances than about what's right. She apologized, and so do I. I'm sorry that I learned to be polite instead of brave. I'm sorry that it took losing you to make me see how wrong I was. I know you said that sorry isn't enough, and you're right. I need to show you that I can be different. I need to prove that I can be the kind of wife who protects her husband instead of protecting her image. I don't know if you're ready to come home yet. I don't know if you ever will be. But I wanted you to know that I'm not the same person who laughed nervously at cruel jokes. I'm not the same person who cared more about fitting in than standing up. I remember the first time I saw you work, how careful and precise you were with every measurement, how you wouldn't move on to the next step until you were sure the foundation was solid. I think I understand now that marriage needs the same kind of care, the same attention to making sure the foundation is strong enough to support everything that comes after. I love you. I choose you. And I'm learning to be brave enough to show the world that choice. All my love, Claire. She read the letter 3 times, making small edits before sealing it in an envelope with his name on the front. Then she drove to Aaron's apartment building and stood outside for 5 minutes, gathering her courage before ringing the buzzer. Aaron answered the door and stepped aside to let her come up to the apartment. Darius was sitting on the couch, looking surprised to see her. I brought you something, Claire said, holding out the envelope. I won't stay long. I know you need space. But I wanted you to know what I've been doing, what I've been thinking about. Darius took the envelope but didn't open it right away. "Thank you. I ended my friendship with Vanessa," Claire said, the words coming out in a rush. "I told her that the things she said about you were racist and wrong, and when she wouldn't apologize or change, I cut ties with her completely." Something shifted in Darius's expression, but he didn't speak. "I know that's just a first step. I know I have a lot more work to do to earn back your trust. But I wanted you to know that I'm done protecting people who hurt you." "Claire." Darius started to say something, then stopped. "Read the letter when you're ready," she said. "There's no pressure to respond or to come home or anything. I just needed you to know." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "I love you," she said, "and I'm sorry it took me so long to be brave enough to show it." After she left, Darius sat on Aaron's couch holding the envelope. Aaron, who had been discreetly listening from the kitchen, came and sat in his armchair. "You going to read it?" Aaron asked. "Yeah, in a minute." She looked different. Different how? Stronger, maybe. Less scared. Darius opened the envelope and read Claire's letter slowly, twice. When he finished, he folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. "What do you think?" Aaron asked. "I think," Darius said slowly, "that she's starting to understand what marriage really means. Is that enough?" "It's a beginning." That night, Darius lay on Aaron's couch, reading Claire's letter one more time before going to sleep. For the first time since he had left, he allowed himself to imagine what it might feel like to go home. But he wasn't ready yet. Not quite. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find out if Claire's new courage would last beyond one difficult conversation with Vanessa. Tomorrow, he would test whether she was truly ready to choose their marriage over her comfort. Tomorrow, they would meet somewhere neutral and see if the foundation of their love was strong enough to build on after all. Darius texted Claire the next evening with a simple message. "Can you meet me at the church at 7? Claire's heart raced as she read the words. She had been checking her phone constantly since delivering the letter, hoping for any sign that Darius was ready to talk. She typed back immediately, "Yes." The drive to St. Mark's Church felt both endless and too short. Claire's hands shook on the steering wheel as she thought about what she might say, what Darius might tell her. When she pulled into the parking lot, she saw his truck already there, and her stomach flipped with nervous hope. The church was quiet and dim, lit only by the soft lights that stayed on for evening visitors. Darius was sitting in the third pew from the front, the same place where they had sat together just 2 weeks ago for their quiet do-over moment. It felt like a lifetime ago. Claire walked down the aisle slowly, her footsteps echoing in the empty sanctuary. All the memories of their wedding day came rushing back. The joy, the hope, the cruel whispers. The moment everything started to fall apart. "Thank you for coming," Darius said as she sat down beside him, leaving a careful space between them. "Thank you for asking me to." They sat in silence for a moment, both of them staring at the altar where they had promised to love each other through better and worse. Claire wondered if either of them had really understood what worse might look like. "I read your letter," Darius said finally. "And it meant a lot to me. What you did with Vanessa, what you said to your mother, those were important steps." Claire felt a flutter of hope. But I need to know that you can do more than cut ties with the people who are obviously cruel. I need to know that you can speak up in the moment when something happens and you have to choose between your comfort and my dignity." "I understand." "Do you?" Darius turned to face her. Because it's not just about big dramatic moments, Claire. It's about all the little moments too. The offhand comments, the innocent questions, the assumptions people make. If we're going to make this work, you can't just ignore those things and hope they go away. Claire felt tears starting to form, but she blinked them back. You're right. I know you're right. I've spent my whole life trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep everyone happy. But I can't do that anymore if it means sacrificing you. It's not just about me, Claire. It's about us. It's about the kind of family we want to build together. The word family hit Claire like a physical blow. She had been so focused on trying to fix the damage she had done that she hadn't thought about the future, about what they might be building toward. Do you think we can still do that? She asked quietly. Build a family together? Darius was quiet for a long time. I want to, but I need to know that any children we might have would never have to wonder if their mother is ashamed of half of who they are. I'm not ashamed of you. I was never ashamed of you. But you were ashamed of what other people might think about you for choosing me. Claire couldn't argue with that because it was true. How do I prove to you that I've changed? How do I show you that I can be different? I don't know yet, Darius said honestly. I guess we'll find out together. Does that mean you're willing to try? To work on this? Darius reached over and took her hand. His touch was gentle but careful, like he was testing whether it felt right. I love you, Claire. I never stopped loving you, even when I was angry and hurt. But love isn't enough if we can't trust each other. I want to earn your trust back, and I want to give it back to you, but it's going to take time. They sat there holding hands in the quiet church, both of them thinking about the promises they had made 2 weeks ago and what it would take to keep them. The silence wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't painful either. It felt like a beginning. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Sure. What made you want to meet here? Darius looked around the sanctuary, at the stained glass windows and the simple wooden cross at the front. This is where we made our promises to each other. The real promises, not the performance for everyone else. I wanted to remember what that felt like. What did it feel like? Like hope. Like possibility. Like we could build something beautiful together if we were both willing to do the work. Claire squeezed his hand. I'm willing to do the work. Even if it means losing more friends? Even if it means having uncomfortable conversations and standing up to people you care about? Especially then. Darius studied her face in the dim light. He could see something different there, something stronger and more determined than he had seen before. Okay, he said finally. Let's try. The next few days passed quietly as they found their way back to each other. Darius moved his things back into the condo, but they both understood that this was the beginning of rebuilding, not a return, to the way things were before. They talked more than they ever had about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. Claire told Darius about the pressure she had always felt to be perfect, to never disappoint anyone. Darius shared more stories about the subtle and not so subtle racism he had faced throughout his life, helping Claire understand why her silence had been so devastating. I need you to know, he said one evening as they cooked dinner together, that I don't expect you to fight every battle or call out every microaggression. I just need to know that you're on my side when it matters. How will I know when it matters? You'll know. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong to you, it probably is. Claire was getting better at recognizing those moments. When a client at work made a comment about being surprised by the quality of work from Darius's company, Claire politely but firmly corrected the assumption. When her mother's neighbor asked if she felt safe in her neighborhood after marrying Darius, Claire shut down the conversation immediately. Each time she spoke up, it got a little easier. Each time Darius saw her choose courage over comfort, his trust in her grew a little stronger. 2 weeks after their conversation in the church, they decided to have a small dinner party at their condo. It would be their first time entertaining together as a married couple, and Claire wanted to surround them with people who truly supported their marriage. Just family and real friends, she told Darius as they planned the menu. People who see us as we are. Aaron arrived first, carrying a homemade apple pie that smelled incredible. "Figured you two could use some dessert," he said with a grin. "And I wanted to see this famous cooking teamwork I keep hearing about." Emma came next, with a beautiful salad and a bottle of wine. She hugged them both and complimented how happy they looked together. Marianne was the last to arrive, and Claire could tell she was nervous. Her mother had been working hard to examine her own prejudices and assumptions, reading books about race and having difficult conversations with herself about the example she had set for Claire. "Darius," Marianne said as she handed him a bouquet of flowers from her garden, "I owe you an apology." "Mrs. Whitfield, you don't—" "Yes, I do. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I worried more about appearances than about what was right, and I taught my daughter to do the same thing." She took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, and I'm grateful that you were patient with us while we learned to do better." Darius accepted the apology with grace, and Claire felt her heart swell with pride for both her mother and her husband. As they sat around the dining table sharing stories and laughter, Claire looked around at the faces of the people she loved most. Aaron was telling an embarrassing story about teenage Darius that was making everyone laugh. Emma was asking Marianne about her garden. Darius was smiling more freely than Claire had seen in weeks. This was what she had been missing when she was so focused on keeping toxic people comfortable. This warmth, this genuine connection, this feeling of being truly known and accepted. After dinner, while they were cleaning up, Marianne pulled Claire aside in the kitchen. "You look happy, sweetheart. Really happy." "I am. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm being honest about who I am and what I want. That's what a good marriage should do for you. It should make you braver, not smaller." When their guests had left and the dishes were done, Claire and Darius stood together in their living room, looking at the framed photo from their wedding that sat on the bookshelf. It was a candid shot of them laughing during the reception before everything fell apart. "I want to take a new picture," Claire said suddenly. "What kind of picture?" "One that shows who we really are now, not who we were pretending to be then." Darius pulled out his phone and held it at arm's length. They stood close together, not posing or performing, just smiling at the camera like two people who had found their way back to each other. The picture was imperfect, slightly blurry, their hair a little messy from cooking all evening, but their faces were peaceful and genuine, and their love was visible in the way they leaned into each other. "Much better," Claire said as she looked at the photo. "This is us." 1 month later, Claire got a text from Jessica, Vanessa's friend who had been a bridesmaid at the wedding. "Hey girl, haven't heard from you in forever. Want to grab drinks and catch up?" The old Claire would have said yes automatically, eager to maintain the connection, even though she knew Jessica would probably want to gossip about Darius or ask invasive questions about their marriage. The old Claire would have convinced herself that she could handle one evening of uncomfortable comments for the sake of preserving a friendship. But the new Claire read the message and felt nothing but relief that she no longer had to navigate those toxic relationships. She texted back, "Thanks for thinking of me, but I'm focusing on the relationships that support my marriage right now. Take care. Jessica responded with several confused and then angry messages, but Claire deleted them without reading them fully. She had learned that not every relationship was worth saving, and that some people weren't capable of the growth and change that real friendship required. That evening, she told Darius about the exchange while they worked together in their small garden, planting herbs for the summer. "How did it feel?" he asked, brushing dirt off his hands. "Easy," Claire said, surprising herself with the honesty of the answer. "It felt easy to say no to something that wouldn't be good for us." "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing us. For not trying to keep everyone happy at our expense." Claire planted the last of the basil seedlings and sat back on her heels, looking at their work. The garden was small, but well tended, full of plants that would grow stronger with time and attention. "I think I'm finally understanding what marriage really means," she said. "What does it mean?" "It means that some relationships have to end so that the most important one can thrive. It means being brave enough to disappoint some people so you can be honest with the person who matters most." Darius reached over and squeezed her dirt-covered hand. "It also means forgiving each other when we mess up and believing that people can change and grow." "Do you believe that? That I've changed?" "I see the evidence every day," he said, gesturing toward their garden, their home, the life they were building together. "In the friends you choose, in the way you speak up when someone says something inappropriate, in how you make decisions based on what's good for our family instead of what's comfortable for you." Claire felt tears of gratitude fill her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for believing that I could learn to be better. Thank you for doing the work to become better." As the sun set over their neighborhood, they sat together on their small back porch, dirty from gardening and tired from a full day of work. Claire's phone buzzed with a message from Emma, asking if they wanted to join her and her boyfriend for dinner next weekend. Another message came from Aaron, sharing a funny video he thought they'd both enjoy. These were the relationships that mattered now. The people who saw their marriage as something to celebrate, not something to question or undermine. The people who made them feel stronger together, not weaker. "I love our life," Claire said, leaning against Darius's shoulder. "Even though it's smaller now? Even though your social circle looks completely different than it did a year ago?" "Especially because of that. I'd rather have 3 real friends than 30 fake ones." Darius kissed the top of her head. "I love our life too." They sat there as the stars came out, planning their next garden project and talking about the future they were building together. It wasn't the life Claire had imagined when she was younger. It was better. It was honest and brave and built on a foundation strong enough to support whatever came next. 6 months later, they would quietly renew their vows in the same church where they first married, surrounded only by the people who had supported them through their hardest moments. Claire would speak without notes about choosing love over comfort, about learning that a smaller circle built on respect was infinitely more valuable than a large network built on tolerance and politeness. But that night on the porch, with dirt under their fingernails and plans for tomorrow taking shape between them, they simply held each other and marveled at how beautiful life could be when you were brave enough to build it on truth instead of fear. The work of loving each other, the real, daily work of choosing each other over and over again, was just beginning. But they were both finally ready for it.